All right, so this is our lecture video for August 26th, 2021. This lecture is going to go over cellular respiration, and it's also going to kind of look at where cellular respiration and photosynthesis tend to overlap. This one is going to be a little bit more difficult. I do kind of encourage you to take screenshots rather than to draw everything down. When we're dealing with cellular respiration, there are 3 different steps, and it's going to kind of look messy. So I do encourage any questions. I will do my best to explain them. So let's go ahead and get started. So what I have here is a chart of world record holders. So this first one would be Usain Bolt. This would be his world record for the 100-meter dash, which he completed in just under 10.5 meters per second. Same thing with our 200-meter dash, have a similar record. And then all of a sudden we start seeing everything go down super quick. So that means that our pace, our speed is going down. So this was okay, and then we started taking that deep dive. That is kind of an indication that us as a human, the human bodies tend to be able to travel longer at slower paces. So I'm going to say we kind of even out about right here on the graph. What we have as a normal process is going to be an aerobic, A-E-R-O-B-I-C. This is going to be an aerobic form of cellular respiration. And I'm going to write down here to the side. If you have aerobic cellular respiration, that means that oxygen is required. So O2, oxygen is required. Up here in our top portion is going to be what you consider like a turbo boost. So like if you're running somewhere really quickly and it's a very short distance, you're able to run faster because that kind of accesses our quick energy. So if you are a track runner, or if you are used to doing a lot of things quickly, then you will know that there's a pain that kind of comes along. So if I were to squeeze a tennis ball super quick within, let's say, 2 seconds, eventually, if you do that process, your hand will begin to kind of cramp up and hurt. And that's because you have lactic acid that is being produced that is telling your body to kind of, slow down. And it's that process that occurs up here, which is anaerobic. And anaerobic processes tend to not require oxygen as much. So O2, oxygen is not required as much. And that's generally why when you run somewhere super quick in that short distance, that's why you're not able to do anything else, is because your body is trying to regain that oxygen that was lost. So kind of moving on from here, we're going to look at the definition of cellular respiration. And I'm going to try and write this out as neatly as possible. Cellular respiration. And cellular respiration takes place inside the mitochondria. Inside the mitochondria. And this may seem very familiar because if you were just coming from a biology class, chances are this is where you ended at the end of the school year. And so when you have cellular respiration, it is occurring within the mitochondria. So let's go ahead. Let's look at that mitochondria a little bit closer. And I'm going to say I am not a very good artist, so I do apologize for the crude drawing. So this is going to be our mitochondria. There will be an outer membrane, and there will be an inner membrane. And I'm only going to draw what is necessary. I'm not going to draw every little bit. But inside of the mitochondria will be these folds. These folds are going to be called cristae. And these are your folds inside the mitochondria. So cristae is your folds inside the mitochondria. Inside of the folds, there may be a liquid that is called your matrix. And inside of the matrix, there will be these little sites where we can see particles roaming around. Those are particles that are synthesizing ATP particles. And so this is just your basic parts of your mitochondria. I know that there is a lot more into a diagram, but this is all we need to know for cellular respiration. Moving on from this point, we are going to start looking at what is actually occurring on a lower level. And we're going to be looking at what type of individuals use cellular respiration. So cellular respiration is generally used by heterotrophs. That's heterotrophs. Heterotrophs. So I am sorry about the bad handwriting. But heterotrophs are going to be organisms that take organic compounds in the presence of oxygen, and they will convert things to CO2 and water, which will also generate ATP. So in a short story, we'll have our plant. I'm still going to use my flower. And we know that within a plant, it does produce oxygen, so that O2 is present because plants give off oxygen. And it will take carbon dioxide into itself, and it will generate ATP. And ATP is inside of the plant. So plants are considered heterotrophs. We also have animals. Animals, plants, bacteria, and fungi. All of these things will actually use cellular respiration. And I cannot emphasize enough about plants. Plants and bacteria especially, they do both photosynthesis and respiration. We tend to focus more on animals and human beings because these individuals are the only ones that only do cellular respiration. Plants and bacteria, they do both. So let's look at our chemical equation. Chemical equation for cellular respiration should look somewhat familiar. So C6 Page 12, O6O2 gives us 6 molecules of carbon dioxide, 6 molecules of water, and ATP. And keep in mind that ATP is energy. And for those that haven't seen that, that's the shorthand term for writing energy, because energy is N-R-G. So, and below it, I'm going to write out the chemical equation for photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is going to be 6 molecules of carbon dioxide, 6 molecules of water, sunlight, and again, sunlight is energy, and we're going to get glucose, and 6 molecules of oxygen. So here are our 2 chemical formulas. What's similar? You should be looking at the fact that we have glucose is in both. We have a form of energy in both as well. And that if we look at this, photosynthesis is the opposite of cellular respiration. Same thing for cellular respiration. You flip the equation and it'll look almost identical to photosynthesis. And what we have here is going to become a cycle. Photosynthesis produces glucose and oxygen. That's necessary for cellular respiration. So you're going to start seeing a vicious cycle between photosynthesis and cellular respiration. It's a vicious cycle. So you need photosynthesis for cellular respiration to occur. That's why we as human beings need plants in order to survive, because our bodies, our systems, they need to use cellular respiration in order to operate. So make sure that you have this relationship between the two. So what particularly is going to be cellular respiration? This is where it gets really tricky. I am not brave enough to begin to try to draw this on my own, so I had to find this picture off the internet. So, and we're going to start with our glucose, because glucose, again, if we look at our chemical formula, is going to be our main sugar. So glucose is going to have 6 carbons. And glucose is going to enter our first step of cellular respiration. Our first step of cellular respiration is going to be called glycolysis. And glycolysis will take those 6 carbons and separate it out into pyruvates, particularly 2. Each of these 2 will have 3 carbons taken from them. So each pyruvate has 3 carbons. And the pyruvate will create 2 ATPs, which again, ATP is energy. Now, glycolysis, while it will have pyruvate, it will have byproducts. And the byproduct will be another form of energy called NADH. So this is just another form of energy. So glycolysis gives us ATP and NADH. Step 2 is going to be in the Krebs cycle, or the Krebs cycle. And it's going to start when the pyruvate is moving into the mitochondria. So, moves into mitochondria. And it's going to create what is called acetyl CoA. And I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that. So we have our acetyl CoA, which is going to be a 2-carbon compound. And it's going to create, through our Krebs cycle, it's going to create carbon dioxide. So this is only one part. So let's go ahead. I have step 2, step 1. This part of our Krebs cycle, I'm going to label as 2.1 because this is still part of the Krebs cycle, but it's happening simultaneously as other parts. So within our Krebs cycle, we also have NADH being formed. NADH will have another friend called FADH2, which I know this is starting to be a lot, but it is again just energy. So both of these forms of energy are going to give us electrons. So an electron here and electron here. So this is going to be high energy. Same thing here. This is going to be a high energy. And this is where our third step begins. So, step 3. Step 3 should sound familiar because in our photosynthesis, we did have an electron that we got from sunlight, and it was passed through proteins to become energy, ATP. And with our cellular respiration, well, we still have electrons that are being produced from these high-level energies, and they are going to enter what is called the electron transport chain, that ETC. We kind of started going into that with photosynthesis. And if you recall, we have those protons that were given to us from water, and those protons made our lumen more positive. Well, here we're going to see those electrons going through a series of protons. I'll label it off to the side just so we can kind of see that. So it's going to be transferred through a series of protons. And the energy will also go through proteins, which is what we have here. So it's going to go first through our protons, and then it's going to go through our protein. And it's going to be pumped out to make, yes, ATP, but it's also going to be coming out to oxygen. The oxygen can also react with other electrons that are around here, and it'll be reformed into water. So throughout the entire process, your entire cellular respiration will create about 32 to 34 ATPs, which again, that is just energy. So you'll have about 32 to 34 molecules of ATP. You will have NADH and FADH, which will just kind of give off our electrons for our electron transport chain. So our main form of energy that we are really looking at will still be ATP as our overall energy that is being used. So let me go ahead. I will tell you about your assignments for today. I don't have a particular assignment for cellular respiration. So I'm going to go ahead and start you on the project, which is basically going to be creating a poster that will explain to individuals what is photosynthesis, what is cellular respiration, and how can they be similar. And I will go ahead, I will attach pictures of examples from student work that I've had last year. The examples, I like to see improvement from year to year. So whatever I have from last year, there's no example that's perfect. For us that are virtual, I would really like for us to